Hello, people. Today here, Fanny Anzai interviews. I have John from DarkMatter2525. For those who do not know, it's a very fun YouTube channel with more than 720,000 subs and more than 180 videos and I don't know, 9 years. Thank you very much, John, for coming and tell us a little bit about it.
Oh, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it. Um, yeah, there was never any big plan. When I started my channel, it was just to post comments, like everybody else, and I decided to try my hand at just regular, meme type videos that are all gone now because they were just silly, and that's how you start out. You just post silly stuff that you think is funny and whatever. And eventually, I decided to try something a little more intricate, and I started to teach myself how to do animations. And the first ones, I mean, you could see they're still uploaded to my channel. My earliest videos, the earliest ones, are my first attempts at animation, and as you could see, they're really bad. Um, but that was, my beginning, and I was learning. And as the years went on, I got better at it, and the channel kept growing and growing and growing, which I never expected. And I certainly never expected to um, make any money at it or make a career out of it. But earlier on in YouTube, that was very, very doable, and I saw a lot of success. So I just kept at it, and I think that became a very efficient way of getting my message out there.
That's really nice. So yeah, so Dark Matter 2525 atheistic animations. And
hmm
so is that 9 years ago? Was that right? Kind of when it started?
Started in 2008, so about almost 12 years now.
Oh.
Like November of
So
2008, I
it's
believe.
probably like those really, really old videos are the ones that you said they're gone. The oldest ones we can find are like 90 years, maybe.
Yeah, the oldest ones are gone. The earliest ones I have on the channel now are my first animations. I think that's from 2009, I want to say.
Mhm.
So it's been a while for YouTube
So
anyway.
the animation was something self-taught. It's not that you really have an education on that, or was
Right.
something experiment.
It it's the animation is self-taught. Um, Although I do have a background in art when I did a lot of art in college, but that doesn't translate as well to animation because the more detailed you get in animation, the harder it is to animate. So I keep that very simple. That's why animations usually look a lot more simple than fine art, you know.
Oh yeah, no, it's totally it's totally understandable the reason why the animations in dark matter are simple, so you can make make it easier for you to just make more of the videos for us. And I
Yeah,
like that. I don't think the visual art is that important. We are always very more interested in to the discussions, the philosophical conversation, and
that's
that is
true.
something so rich from your channel, because I think it brings this other side of in atheism, and now a little bit talking about how I want to feed the people that are watching. I expect to be the people that are already atheists, but now we are opening an atheist republic in Portuguese, and I'm going to be trying to lure people from other atheist associations in Brazil that are still very weak, and people still like really afraid of coming out of the closet. As I mentioned to you,
Yeah,
Brazil is highly religious. We have 86% of population Christian, and 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 they still behave really bad towards anybody coming out as an atheist. You can
yeah,
believe in other gods, but not believing in any of gods, you really treat it with some type of prejudice. It's a common knowledge in Brazil that you don't have God in your heart, you're immoral. You don't have morals if you don't
Mm.
have God in your heart. It's one of their beliefs for being so highly religious.
Yeah, there's a lot of common misconceptions about atheists, but if you look at all the statistics, you see that we're among the most peaceful people on earth. Disproportionately fewer of us are in prison. Um, we tend to be more educated and more successful, and that's all connected. That's correlated. The education and the success. I mean, that tends to lead people away from religion, and which is why in most of the first world countries you see them trending towards being non-religious, and you also see them trending towards being less violent. So it's actually the opposite of what a lot of people's misconceptions are about atheists. Whereas in the most religious places on earth, they're extremely violent, um, either through crime or war. What we don't see is we don't see religion solving the problems that people think it solves. So that's a huge misconception that I think needs to be corrected in the world.
Definitely. In Brazil, it is something that has been attacked by at least the atheist groups trying to not attack or contra attack those accusations. Sometimes public accusations, people that are artists or has happened, journalists in criminal uh, news talk about how, oh, atheists, it might be an atheist, this criminal, because atheists, we know they don't have gods in their hearts, and that's why they are
Mm.
immoral and they commit crimes. That old, bad, the joke that we make today that's like, yeah, everybody knows atheists eat babies. And
Mm-hmm.
some people there would, yeah, no, those are atheists. And I think it is interesting. And when I was there, I was still trying to mention, it's like, why we have so many religious people in prison. If if it is true what the religious people saying, that the immoral people or the atheists, why we have so many religious people in the prisons? Why they have committed so many religious people involved in violent crimes,
Yeah.
specific, you know
Yeah.
and and I think it explains the reason, they accept and they commit those crimes. It's all based on the double standards of their own Bible, of their own beliefs, because their
Mm-hmm.
own God is full of those inconsistencies and full of the double standards, like don't kill, but if I tell you to kill, it's okay. And it starts there, to accept all these double standards, in the same way that we have a lot of preaching inside the prisons that convince these people that they have no agency.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not them, it's God that makes them do good, and even the devil that makes them do bad.
Mm-hmm.
So they are not really responsible. So they just need to repent and say sorry to God, not even to the family of people that they killed, raped, or whatever,
Right.
because it's just God solves all the problem. And that is another mechanism that makes easier to just follow, because it's so forgiving. You can just be immoral and dress up your Jesus shirt and virtue signaling outside, and you're a good person. You can kill, you can rape, you can do everything with your Jesus shirt in Brazil. But tell anybody you're an atheist, and
Yeah.
you're gonna see what's coming for you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's counterintuitive because I think the logic they're using is that if you don't believe you're being watched over all the time by some supreme being that can punish you, then you're going to think that you can get away with stuff. Like you're not under surveillance 24/7. So, you're going to do whatever you want. But in actuality, I mean,
They
atheists
don't
understand.
really believe. They actually
Yeah.
know it's not true. And that is the secret. They want to be true, but they know it's not. It's different, and that is the position where I think is the step of we take when we become an atheist. Is like, is not more what I want to be true. I
Right.
would love to have a superior God, loving God, super powerful that could. And then I understand if that was possible, if this God, this loving Christian God, all powerful, all knowing, that can do anything, even creating everything, and
Hmm.
not being created by anything. uh, I guess the planet would be very different, and that's why I don't accept their premises. So, and
Right.
it's a lot of like the conversation on the straw manning atheist positions, definitely, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And this is the world that I would expect to see if there was no God that had any kind of influence, good or bad. I mean, you would see a world with, good things and bad things all mixed together, and you wouldn't see a pattern of God interacting to enact some kind of plan. Um, and this is the world the way I would expect it to look without a God. Um,
Yeah, what we have right now is a pretty
yeah,
reality without a God.
right. And it's just like you say, I don't choose my beliefs. I can study different sides of the argument and be convinced or not convinced, but I'm not choosing, oh, I like this, so I'm going to believe that. There's definitely things that I don't like about there not being a God. I like the idea of being able to see loved ones who have died, to see them again, but I don't believe that that's going to happen. Uh, it's not about what I want. It's about what I believe to be true.
Yeah, and I think there are people that are enlightened enough to know that those are emotional clutches. I've heard friends saying like, "But I want so bad, I want to believe, and I will choose to still believe because reality is subjective." And we go all the way to the end of the conversation, realize that is that okay, reality is only one. We have different perceptions, and our perception of reality doesn't change the one reality that we all in, but I still want to
And
believe. And I
and
said,
I think,
okay, that's fine. I'm
yeah,
totally for that. And then we come to the discussion. I was like, but how far religion should be from your private life, and how much we should let this go into the public, or how much we should take it back that is so much into the public already in Brazil, in a secular country. But we
hmm,
have Party of Jesus, evangelical party, and everything. So we need to step back and talk about the rules and the principles, and I think maybe learn a little bit from Eastern Asian, like for example Japan, that they're so traditionalist. They keep all their beliefs so tight, but the same way they can be secular in their politics and try to be more reasonable when we talk about the public sphere.
right, right. And I think that part of that is why there's a dislike of atheists, because you do have people who want to believe these things, and atheists are kind of like, the party poopers. We're not we're taking away the nice feelings. We're making people worry. And why are you doing this? Why do you care if people believe? And it's just like you said, it's because people don't keep it to themselves. They involve it into politics. And if people just, minded their own business and didn't try to impose um, these beliefs into the political sphere, into the schools, and in atheists would be less inclined, I think, to speak out about it too. Everyone would live and let live. And we get accused of not wanting to live and let live. But ours isn't an imposition as much as it is a reaction to an imposition. We're not the ones trying to indoctrinate school children, tell them that God doesn't exist, and we're not the ones who are trying to base public policy on around the non-existence of a God and trying to impose our beliefs on everyone and put them into the pledge and on signs everywhere and base it around laws, having to swear upon the God delusion or something in court or something like that. But religious people are, and they're relentless. And there's new bills all the time coming in from every state um, that are trying to erode that separation of church and state, the very same separation that some of the founding fathers thought made religion look weak. If they need the state as a crutch to keep their religion alive, then that doesn't bode well for your religion.
Yeah, I love the conversation we had with Andrew
Andrew
Seidel.
Seidel, yeah,
Yeah,
Seidel, yeah,
from the book Why, what's that called? Why Christian Nationalism is Un-American. And
right.
uh, and it's just such a good interview. I'm not gonna try to dive on that conversation like you guys did. Guys, go check the. Was that the first time you came out, like put your face on a video and did an interview
Oh,
or conversation like this?
it was my first interview, but I've had my face online before, and I have another channel called Dark Antics, where I usually just post videos where I talk to the camera instead of animations. Not everything lends itself to animation and all that work to animate. Sometimes I just want to be able to talk to the camera, and that's where I usually upload those videos on Dark Antics. Sometimes I'll do it on the Dark Matter channel.
So yeah, go check Dark Antics and this interview. I was sad. I actually wrote in my notes that was said that such an important conversation you guys had and about that book and all the conversation on that video only got like 5% of your audience. So go check the
Mm.
video, whoever did not
Yeah,
watch yet.
it's a long video and it's not what I usually post, so that might have something to do with it. So it's about an hour long.
Yeah, it differs a lot from your usual videos, animations, 15, 20 minutes, and the format and the conversation, of course. But I would expect that just from having, I imagine, most of your audience being atheists, that people would be interested in the conversation. But I guess a lot of people still afraid of the political conversation. And
Yeah.
I think you, that reflects a little bit what we suffer today, that is the cancel culture. So as an atheist channel, and now more even coming talking about politics, because there is that famous expression, go woke get broke. Have you
Uh-huh.
suffered any cancel culture or experience yourself?
Um, no, no, not that I haven't personally felt any pressure at all, but then again, I don't really pay attention to it because if if it were to come, it would just be it would be through YouTube deleting my channel or something because I would never voluntarily do that. I do what I want to do, and to hell with what people say. You
Not
know,
that there are people organizing like hate followers following you, trying to make campaigns
right,
to cancel you or anything like that.
right. If any of that happened, I would just ignore it. You know, I
You
think
like
that
it's going. You did not even notice.
yeah, unless of course, um, I mean, if I noticed it going on, I would not just my reaction wouldn't be just a knee jerk ignore it, but to see if there's any merit to their arguments first and foremost. Am I actually in the wrong here? Because I'm not perfect. Of course, I could be wrong. So I want to see if their arguments have merit first, and if they do, then I'm going to self-correct. I'm not one of those stubborn people who's just gonna say, "Well, I know it's not my fault," no matter what. um, if I know if I if their criticisms are valid, then I have to take that on board and change. But if I disagree, um, I'm not going to be bullied into, changing something that I don't think needs to be changed.
Yeah. In today's Puritanism, it's hard to just stand like saying you're not gonna say sorry if you're not, like they cannot even understand it because they just want you to say sorry no matter what. It's not about being right or being wrong. It's like, oh, I
Yeah.
got offended. You have to say sorry. And it's like, no, you don't need to say sorry. Offensiveness is not a crime.
I think that it's okay to say you're sorry if you genuinely feel sorry, and people should not be punished for that either way. Because if you do say you're sorry, you're going to have some people who say, "Oh, well, you caved," but you might genuinely be sorry. Then there's the people who are asking for apologies, and I think that's misguided too, because if you're asking for an apology and then you get an apology, how are you going to know that apology came sincerely, or if it was just coming about because of pressure? So
Exactly.
when someone voluntarily apologizes, I think that says a little bit more about their sincerity, when otherwise they wouldn't have had to apologize, but they voluntarily did it anyway. I think that shows a little more sincerity than pressuring them.
Totally agree. Yeah, it's about the confession under torture.
Hmm.
It's easy to get it. So I will go back a little bit just to ask you a little bit about your personal background. So who are John and how did you become or kept yourself an atheist? Is that okay to ask
Um,
you?
sure, sure. I've always been an atheist ever since I learned about what God is supposed to be. Of course, I first heard about it as the Christian God. Um, and I was always I always didn't believe in that since before I even knew what an atheist was. Um, I equated it with the other fairy tales that I was told about. I just
I
thought
was
it
so
was an
convinced that Jesus and Santa Claus was like, God, Santa Claus, all those people that mutate in between them, and they're like watching us, and then they give us thing if we're good. I thought they were all the same at some
yeah,
point when I was very little, and then the way they told me the story, I was just, this makes no sense.
yeah. A lot of the stories of
Was
the
that like
Bible,
early for you, like childhood?
childhood, yeah, 8 years
But your
old, I
parents
remember.
were believers, so
No, I mean they were totally indifferent,
okay.
agnostic. Like, they never
Didn't
talked
care.
about it.
Igtheist. Is that the term? Yeah.
Atheist, yeah. Um, they just were totally not interested in
Don't
it.
care.
It's just secular. And the way I got into it was, at school and stuff when I heard other kids talking about it, and I ex, expressed my belief that that's just fairy tales. And of course, the first thing I was told was I'm going to burn in hell. Um, and what
By a super loving God.
Right, right. And a big coincidence in my life was that my grandfather was an atheist activist. So you would think that he influenced me to be an atheist, but that's not the case. I was an atheist before I knew he was an atheist. But when I learned that he's an atheist, I interacted with him more about it, and I think that probably reinforced my dislike of religion, because I saw how religious people treated him. This was back in the 80s when there was much more, I'll say, bigotry towards an open atheist than there is
Mhm.
today. I saw all the death threats that he and his family, which would include me, even though I was a little kid, would get. They would call his house, and this was before caller ID, so he would just write down a note of what they said and everything in a notebook. And I found the notebook and saw these death threats from religious people good Christian, who were supposed to be good Christians and whatnot. And that probably had an effect on me. That probably, influenced my direction in life, and my passion for this topic. I'm
Hmm.
sure it did.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. As I mentioned to you before, it is a little bit what drives me to be an activist still in Canada, where we don't suffer much religious prejudice as saying we are atheists. We have religious friends, family, and everybody. People call themselves religious here in a very secular way. Sometimes they don't even really go to church.
Right.
I think I mentioned a little bit when I interviewed Lawrence Cross, and that we talked a little bit about how people actually gonna just mark they are Christians or they are religious, and they don't
Right.
really follow religious, they don't really go to church. It's just, and if you actually ask them, like, do you believe in a personal God? They will even say like they don't. Uh, so what actually just drives people to say they're religious is the
The
popular,
culture.
the
Culture. Yeah.
culture, the common, yeah, even what you talked a little bit with Andrew, the colloquialism of using God in our, oh my gosh, in Brazil, in Portuguese, even worse. But what
Hmm.
happens that actually brought me here to Canada, one of the reasons, and that makes me be a little bit activist on the atheism, is because in Brazil, on highly religious uh, places, religious people are oppressing the people that don't follow their beliefs in many
Yeah.
different ways, and not just being mistreated, not just. I think nowadays much less on the death threats, but it still happen. The Brazilian comedians that made the Netflix special with the Jesus gay, they were attacked and their studio was set on fire right on Christmas night
Wow.
when the
Yeah.
Netflix show special Jesus Gay came out. So in those places where there are more religious people, uh, the atheists are not even coming out as atheists because they do suffer a lot of prejudice and oppression. The
I had
idea,
a yeah.
sorry,
I had a friend in Brazil who
oh, it's nice.
who was an atheist, and she constantly got pressure from her friends and family because of it, and she ended up converting to Christianity, and a lot of that, and then lost touch. Like I'm still fine with keeping in touch, but you know, she wasn't. It was a big group of us friends on YouTube, and she was part of that, and she just left the group and went her own way because she found religion. And part of me wonders how much of that is sincere belief or
Mm.
just I don't
To
want
conform with the group.
yeah, I'm just tired of dealing with all of the pressure from my friends and family and the negative attention and everything, and it would just be so much easier to just give in and play the role.
Yeah. And also, I don't like to say that. It sounds like using fallacies to say that, oh, it was not a real atheist,
Hmm.
to say like, but I've seen that happening inside my own family. My brother titled himself an atheist, agnostic atheist, for years during his teenagehood and a little bit on med school.
Hmm.
And then he met a girl in med school that he's married today, and I believe he's gonna end up becoming an evangelical pastor. He
Wow.
converted and found Jesus. Um, that he was very religious when kid, and then left. And but for me, the period that he was the agnostic atheist, he was not an agnostic atheist for the good reasons, and that's
Mm.
why he converted so easy with any of the gods, because if you just need to go to a ritual, a mass, whatever church, and congregate with these people and feel something, the same way you feel in a show, same thing you feel in any ritual. To be convinced that there is a God, I don't know if it is wrong really to say that you were not a real atheist or agnostic before. So,
Yeah.
people use those terms and definitions sometimes wrong because they don't really know what actually means. And I think it is important to say that the atheists are the people that we are the people that are just not believing in all the claims of all religious people saying they know the truth.
Hmm.
And we expect some evidence. So if there is any truth atheists that became religious because they got this evidence, I would expect them to come and show to us at
Yeah.
least. And
Yeah. And it's that's true. Just because you're an atheist, that doesn't mean that the reasons you have for disbelieving are good. I think that it's correct. I think that it's correct that there's probably no such thing as a God. Um, so to arrive at that conclusion, you might be using bad logic to arrive at the correct conclusion. So if somebody comes along and points out how your logic is wrong, you might mistakenly be convinced to go the other way because your logic for disbelieving was never good in the first place. So that can actually be a vulnerability, even if the things that you believe are true and correct. It can be vulnerability if your way of getting there is faulty.
yeah, I think there is a lot of philosophy, why religion is so popular in Brazil. It's not just because people are more ignorant, has less education, but in general, it's philosophy. Because for
Mm-hmm.
me, when I was present the first time, as you mentioned, I heard you speaking your story, and I felt so much into it. Like it's the same, empathized as mine, because when I was present with the idea that there was a creator, and that was the first time that I heard someone trying to tell me that there was someone made all of this. Look at how amazing and complex everything is.
Mm-hmm.
I already did not accept because I was like, okay, this creator needs to be created. If everything, because the first premise is everything so amazing, it has to be created. It's like, okay, so he needs to be much more complex and he needs to be created as well. So who created him? And they were like, no, he
Mm-hmm.
was there already. It's like, that doesn't make sense. Imagine
Right.
a super complex being sitting in the middle of nowhere, you know, dark everywhere, and then he got bored and decided to create everything. And they're like, yeah. And it's like, okay, I'm not gonna buy this. It's BS. I'm sorry. Then I was already like not like it's when I think that is like, yeah, I was never atheist because I never accepted, but of course I conformed socially. So I would go to the church, the religious
Mm-hmm.
classes because my friends were going.
Mm-hmm.
So it has this social conformity, but
Right.
all the time I was watching them talking about all the things, and none of the things made much sense to me. The Trinity, and then I had problems in the religious school. They asked me, like, I asked to go out because they complained to my mom that I was making too many questions. And that I was causing too many doubts on the other kids. And so my mom thought, like, okay, I'm going to give you a private religious class that we would not really study any religious stuff. We're just playing around. And my idea of religion is like the inconsistencies. It's like, how can these other people not see this? So
Mm-hmm.
maybe they saw something that I did not see. Maybe there are many gods, and so I'm gonna try something else. I went through different religions and beliefs and churches because it was not okay to be an atheist. It's like you can
Mm-hmm.
believe in another god. You cannot just not believe in anything. That is the bad thing. So that is the default. When it should be more like, no, look, we none of those religions actually have evidence, or they would have put them to proof. and they would find out who is the real God, and they have not done that yet. So if I will accept the same evidence that they all have the same personal experience in a holy book, I will have to, or I will have to believe in all of them or in
Mm-hmm.
none of them. And that was much later in life. I was already 25, 26 when I was a kid. No, I'm not gonna pick any religion. I'm gonna be free from religion. I'm gonna be just a spiritualist, but yeah, and not accept the term as an atheist. Yeah, maybe early 20s I was there and only accepted myself as an atheist when I was already 26. So I would say I'm an atheist officially only 10 years, but I've never became any other really religion, because I was trying, and I was honestly trying to believe in those things. I wanted deeply to be truth, but my idea of, like, if this religious God exists existed, the planet would be perfect. We would not have kids dying from whatever disease, like a sudden death, like
Mm-hmm.
those diseases that kill, or kids having cancer, or we have, okay, you don't want to talk about all the things that man can make, but what about natural disasters? We would not have, because that is all God can control, and God is all good. So we would not have any natural disasters. So I would try to, like, I was always playing in my head, like, what would would the planet be if there was a real God, really
Mm-hmm.
a God existed? And in the end, I was like, okay, maybe the God is just not all of those things that the religious people wanted to be. Let's assume that God made everything and left. So I start walking on the definitions of deism, pantheism, and other things, and walking out officially as to become an atheist. But it
Mm-hmm.
was this trajectory. It's long, it's difficult, and it was for me that long and difficult, I think, because of the religious pressure around. And that's
Yeah.
why I think it's important to have groups and communities that can help people that still on the wall. I have opened a series where I talk to non-famous people about more strict epistemology and their beliefs, and they most of the time want to talk about how is how is to be an atheist. What is your meaning in life? Because you
Mm.
lack meaning in life because you don't have God. And it's like, no, I actually have much more meaning in my life since I became an atheist than I had before, and
Mm-hmm.
because I feel that I have more agency, and I think much more about my choices, my decisions. And I don't know, would you like to talk a little bit about that? I think it's something
I think that one of the one of the strengths of religion is that it can bind itself to the culture in that way, um, to make it more difficult for people who don't accept it. Uh, it binds itself to the culture. It becomes a tradition. It becomes a way to ostracize others. Um, so it can perpetuate. It's very easily to perpetuate, kind of like a parasite onto a community, and then it eventually becomes a part of that community, and then passes on generation to generation. It becomes tradition. It becomes part of the fondness of people's memories. Um, People interested in preserving culture. This is why a lot of conservatives tend to lean towards the religious side. They're trying to conserve um, the tradition, the religion. They associate their religion with things that are good about society, and lack of religion with things that are bad about society. So that scares them and motivates them, and that has a broad effect. It affects people like us in ways that you just talked about, and that is to their advantage. And it's a really big uphill battle.
yeah.
you know.
I think people, mainly nowadays with this uh, corona going on, this social distancing, the fear of the future, what is going to happen in the future, and of course, a lot of political and cultural war that's going on. People are just going down the hill like very depressed and feeling that their lives are meaningless. Um, but and I think that is all wraps up a little bit on what I wanted to do still. I interviewed Cernovich recently, and we just talked for an hour and a half, but we did not get into the conversation on gorilla mindset. That it's very related to that as well, because when it you're said that God made you like this and that's how you're supposed to behave, but you don't have any agency, whatever bad you do is evil, whatever good you do is God, takes that agency. I feel like when I was religious, I lived like that, and that is something that not regret, but I would do different if I had more clarity that no,
Hmm.
and be more individualist than collectivist in the idea of like, we do those good, like religious people do good things because of God. It's like, no, no, we people are able to do good and bad. We do good, bad because of the process of our brains that is in our mind. So somehow we have some type of free will and power to change. So we're not set to be this or that in the way
Hmm.
that religious people sometimes believe, so how mainly and how beliefs and religious beliefs make their followers believe. They, no, you were bad, but it's fine, it was evil, so let's pray and then you do good, you're gonna do better after. But in the same way, they will be using just emotion because they are not accessing reason to believe that, to understand what happened and to be able to fix. So they will again just rely on emotions to behave. And of course they're gonna, for example, for I talk a lot about this on how they use the 12 steps program for people that have addictions and how it's so failing all the time,
Mm.
that program, because it takes the agency of the individual off their hands. It's like, oh, it talks about those uh, superior beings actually making you drink or use drugs or whatever. And I think it's a
Mm.
lot what's going on in the cultural political conversations as well. And
Hmm.
you were political on your Twitter.
Oh yeah.
I wanted you to tell me what is the term mythoclass, because that is your profile in your Twitter.
Oh, is there any way to stop the echo right now that I hear? There's
Yeah.
a when I talk. Oh, okay, there it go. It's gone. Okay. Um, the mythoclast, a destroyer of myths, is basically what it means. Um, it's just a word I saw one day, and I really liked the sound of it, destroyer of myths, which to be honest isn't 100% accurate because I'm not interested in censorship. I'm not interested in getting rid of like the religion to the point of like burning books and like not destroying in that way, but proving to be incorrect. That's what I mean by destroying myths.
I think it's important to say that. Thank you for bringing it out, because it was a little bit what I mentioned when we were atheists. We just don't believe on the claims. It's not that we actually want to stop any religious group from praying and doing their own stuff. They,
Right.
at least I understand there are authoritarian atheists nowadays, and I've encountered some. It's very interesting to hear the cognitive dissonance and the intolerance, everything that we flew away from religion coming from an atheist person, but they exist.
Mm.
But it's important to mention that those are the minorities, those are the straw manning individuals, the individuals that serve to fit on the strawmans of the other side. Because atheists, in fact, we just don't believe in the claims, but we open to any evidence. And as an atheist, I would love to support if one day they actually come to the um, public schools and force religious programs. I would support them to give religious studies of all religions, because I would believe that would be a proper religious class. That was
Right.
something I argued when I was 12 in my school, because they brought religious classes. And I said, so, oh, good. So we're going to study all the religions. And they said, no, we're studying the Christian Bible, the Catholic Church
Yeah.
one. And I was like, but that is not religious class, so it should call Catholic class. And in this case, because I don't follow this religion, I will abstain myself from the class. So I actually talked to the principal, and she did not have any argument. She let me go. I did not need to watch the class, because it was my arguments. Okay, and I'm fine, because in Brazil, we have Bolsonaro, and he put a very evangelical education minister in the education, and that talks about bringing creationists to the schools, science class, and religious classes in schools, and people have to pray the same way they have to, I don't know, sing the anthem, Brazilian anthem. And it's like, okay, you guys gonna put really up there. So let's talk about now. I believe the atheist groups should be talking about, okay, if you're gonna have religious classes, let's talk about all the religions. You're gonna have to read the Quran, and then you're gonna listen to all the Indian songs, and and everything, and go all the way Buddhism, and present all the religions. And that would be a more honest way to explore religions and try to find the real God, if you actually want. I love that Life of Pi. I think that movie was brilliant on that way. That boy was like, yeah, he's really smart. That story on like, yeah, I'll have to believe in all the religions. Like, yeah, keep accumulating.
I
If you
haven't seen
accept
this.
one,
I
you're
haven't
gonna
seen
have to
that
accept
movie.
all. It's
Um,
full of mysterious things.
but
A
I
lot of
do
unknowns.
agree that it would be helpful to teach about all the religions, not just present day too, but also religious history. I would be okay with that. Um, I'm not okay with religious favoritism. I'm not okay with um, just going to one religion and saying this is, the truth and all the others are false. I mean, you have no religion has a majority of the people on earth believing it. You have Christianity is the biggest religion, and then Islam, and then Hinduism and Buddhism, and down the line, we're talking about billions of people who believe different things, and it's not like something that can be scientifically verified. So there's no consensus as to which one is true. Teach them all.
Yeah, it definitely is something that people in, I think, not just saying in Brazil and talking about people are more ignorant about this subject. I think in general, the secularism, it's something that it's a term that most of people don't understand what actually means. It's like not trying to stop anybody from praying their gods in their private lives, is stopping people from performing any benefits or favoritism of any religion in the public sphere. And in Brazil, when you talk about this, they even go far on trying to push and say like, oh no, but it's a democracy, so it's okay, it's representative that we're gonna elect, and that the president is gonna be talking about religion in front of everybody, because we are all religious.
Hmm.
They think that, and we need to step back, talk about how is a democratic republic, that we have to actually defend the minorities, and that's why you should not have any favoritism to any religion.
Right.
And yeah,
There, a pure democracy would be a problem because you would have the tyranny of the majority and they would impose their will on a minority, and it could be a very unfair will to impose. Um, you could say all these people need to be slaves, and well, we voted on it, so that's fair, and we're the majority. Well, that's not fair. So there does need to be, a republic. There does need to be a constitution to keep the government in check. I wholeheartedly embrace that system, uh, because not I mean, it's really uh, well, I'm kind of getting off the subject here, but you know what I mean. It's
no, I totally agree. Uh, in Brazil, I like to mention to these Brazilians that use this type of argument. I try to explain, it's like, look, we see majority Christians voting for Bolsonaro because he is a Christian. It's fine. The only problem was because he used that to be his campaign. And that
mm,
was anti-constitutional to start. The same thing that I think happens in the United States when it's like, it's okay for Trump to be religious and be Christian and hold Bibles. It's like, yeah, it's totally fine. It's his private life and his beliefs. He should be able. The only problem is when he's doing this because he's pledging for the Christians to vote him. And the line, it's subtle, it's difficult to sometimes to point because I think, of course, religious groups trying to make movements on inside their own church to convince people to pray, it's a little edge on what are the limits of the church. A priest coming and telling everybody in his mass like vote Trump. I'm not sure. I don't agree with that because I saw this happening in Brazil with Bolsonaro, and I don't think that is okay. I don't think the religious people should be using their position to influence people in the voting the same way the president should not using the Bible to just convince religious people to vote him. So, and it's subtle line because there is the private life as well. But I think it's easy when we see demonstrations publicly, for
yeah,
example.
yeah. That's one of the reasons that I've spoke out against religion is because I see it as a political vulnerability. Like religious people have this vulnerability where they can be manipulated through their religion, um, by someone who, like Trump. I'm not even totally convinced that he is a Christian. You know, he hasn't shown that he knows much about it. You know,
I think he is more like Bolsonaro. He is just using religions to pledge to the majority. Uh,
mhm,
it's a good recipe. They both did that. In Brazil, Bolsonaro won because he was super religious, because he was anti-corruption, anti the Labor Party that was very corrupted before. And in the United States, Trump won because he's very religious and anti-Hillary that is somehow crooked. So
mhm.
Hillary, crooked Hillary. So yeah, it's a recipe. But in Brazil, Bolsonaro has been put against the wall by their own religious groups saying, hey, Bolsonaro, evangelics and Catholics are not the same, so you have to pick a side.
Mm. Uh-oh. Yeah,
And
that's one of the problems with religion. Uh, they develop these factions, and all your problems aren't going to get solved when everybody's religious, because there's going to be first different religions and then different denominations within the religion, and those have been notorious for conflicts throughout history. Um, so no, it's not going to solve problems.
no, and I love when they try to bring up the moral excuses to protect religion, and like, but religion unites us as humans. Like, no, it doesn't, because
Right.
if it was true, we would not need a church every single corner. I live in a Bible Belt here in Canada, like close to Vancouver, but very religious. There are so many churches. Why are not all these religious people just going to the park and pray all together? If that was true, if they were all united, but I bet they don't even like each other, because that's what happened in Brazil. The Catholics don't like the evangelics. No, sorry, I'm saying wrong. The evangelics don't like the Catholics, and the Catholics don't like all the other ones that believe in Umbanda or whatever African descendant religions that are normally polytheists and they do rituals.
Hmm.
The Christians are always making jokes out there and saying like, "Oh, these people do black magic." They even say like, if they find ritual on the streets, they say, kick it, because it's macumba, it's black magic.
Wow.
And
I
there are jokes of it. It became a meme.
Yeah, I mean, I've encountered people like that who believe in such things, and it's hard to know how to talk to them even because they're on such a different level than we are. Like, because I mean, I don't believe in magic at all. I don't believe in the devil or demons or anything like that. Not just God, but all this other stuff. And they are so far into it that that stuff is like a reality for them. Of course, this stuff exists. Of course, there's ghosts
I love
and
when people say that they are agnostic atheists, but then they just do not believe in one God, and then they believe in all the other things. It's like, so you're not agnostic.
hmm.
So you still believe in so many crazy things. That is one of the things I always mention. Like, you cannot, like, I don't remember who used to say that, but whatever. Hitchens. I've watched like so many videos of Dennett and Harris and Hitchens. So I've followed all these people during my process becoming an atheist. Um,
Hmm.
and I don't record who said, you can't herd cats. They just do not believe in God. It's not that
Right.
they will make a group, a religious group, and unhappily, religious people want to claim atheist is a belief or a religion when it's definitely not.
What part of the disadvantage atheists have, uh, when you group atheists and religious people, the disadvantage that atheists will have is that we are going to have all kinds of different beliefs other than the God thing. We're going to have we're going to be all across the political spectrum. We're going to disagree about all kinds of things. Religious people are going to be more grouped together, and they're going to be more, how do I put it, working toward a common goal, so to speak.
Sorry,
Hi.
she came back. Say hello.
Hello. Hi.
Oh, you shy.
Oh no.
Mom's friend. Say hi, John.
What's her
What did you
name?
bring me here? She said because she fell right on the door. That's why I muted. I heard her like just
Oh.
falling. So she's like, I brought you donuts, but I fell on the door.
Oh.
It's okay. I
How
can cut her off when I edit the video.
how old is she?
She's 3. Write down the time in the recording. Yeah, I will do that. You want to come say hello? Nat is my husband. He is the one that. Dark Matter? Yeah, this is
Yes.
Dark Matter, John.
Hi.
And
Good day,
he's the
John.
one that brings me
Big fan.
all, yeah,
Oh, thank you.
all
Thank
Watching
you.
you for
the.
years.
Thank you.
Excellent work.
Appreciate it. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Uh,
So yeah, Nat was the one that made me accept myself as an atheist.
uh-huh.
Yeah, after we started dating, and then he started talking about those things, and I was just so offended because I was used with the idea in Brazil that you're supposed to not talk about those things. So I
Right,
had
right.
my topics. I had these hot, controversial topics that I would never touch. It was like religion, sports, and politics. It's like don't talk about those things. Those things can be really hard in Brazil. And but I was always really annoyed with the conversations in Brazil to be about the weather. Things like just so useless for me, like as conversations. So I liked talking to him about the subjects like science and stuff, but every time he tried to touch atheism, it's like, you're a reasonable. I believe you're an atheist. I was like, no, don't even say that. I refuse that term. And when he started exploring my beliefs, he was like, Fanny, you are an atheist. You cannot deny that. I was like, no, I admitted that I never accepted the creator. But it's okay, I can just call myself a spiritualist. Why is this important? We would end up in heated conversations, in discussions. And in the end, I was just, why do you care? Why you want to talk about this? Like, I just don't want to even talk. Can I just not be an atheist and be on my own? Not
Right.
need to talk about this to other people. It seems like you want to preach your atheist to other people, was my fight to him to even talk about. But I was just being still feeling that fear, It was just like that fear of talking about it for real. Until
Yeah.
I came, so he brought me to videos and stuff, and like, no, there is a fun approach. It doesn't need to be preaching, doesn't need to be fighting, doesn't need, just you can consume things as being an atheist just because you like. And I was like, yeah, okay, if it's in my particular life, I'm fine to explore those ideas and keep going on that, because I really think, yeah, the atheist idea makes more sense. And I was very fascinated by, like I mentioned, Sam Harris, uh, Hitchens, Dennett, and so many watch comedy. I love comedy, George Carlin, and and on and on. So
Yeah.
I consumed. I had YouTube for like since 2012 at least, that I would just be using, consuming all this media and setting myself, accepting myself as an atheist. It was
I
that
see.
process, long process, until I decided to. What actually made me open the YouTube channel was an accident. It was just I was so pissed with it. Bolsonaro. Came into power with this slogan, God above everybody, and no, Brazil above everybody and God above everything.
Mm.
And I started making live publications on my Facebook, trying to message to reach Bolsonaro in the way that, like, Bolsonaro, please respect the Constitution. We have this in the Constitution. You should not be saying those things, because he came out after being elected saying, if you're not religious like me, you can just leave the country.
Mm.
I'm not going to rule for you. I'm ruling for these people, in
I see.
saying the Christians. So I think it's a little bit of what we want to approach now. That is the video recently. You became a little bit more political in the channel, and made a video that is called Agenda, that I think you can explain to us, but I thought was a little bit on the puritanism of ideas and the ideologues of the extreme sides of the politics in the United States. And you can talk a little bit about it.
Oh, yeah, I was kind of inspired to make a video um, about how people kind of mistake the existence for people who aren't like them as kind of like an agenda to impose their lifestyles or something like that. It's and I think that a lot of that has to do with projection too. Like, um, like the people say stuff like the gay agenda or the transgender agenda or atheist agenda or liberal agenda or stuff like this when it's there's not an agenda other than to just be accepted in society and be able to live your life without being persecuted or to be able to be in media without people thinking that it's just politics. It's these people exist in real life, and it's not just simply politics because they're in media. I understand the concept of maybe some people wanting to make sure that they are included because they want to reach a broader audience, stuff like that.
Yeah, I totally see that. It's what the other side will call agenda. Sometimes it's just a natural uh, will to represent their lives, and
Right.
I think I see that. I think the interesting point of that video, I don't know, I think there is a little bit on the straw man of the extreme right, you know, but I do think it's the most important point of that video was to maybe show that it's like, can you actually think out of the box and accept that could that even be possible? If you cannot do that, in fact, you're going to be eliminated from whatever extremist is, and maybe that's would be the answer for the future of politics in so many places. We all should be more centrist. We should all be able to understand that the other side is not evil. The other side wants good to. Maybe they just have a different belief, or they believe in a different method.
Yeah.
And
As long as there's no impositions going on, um, I think it's okay to prefer a certain lifestyle if you're not imposing it on anyone else. And what I mean by that is you're like you're not telling gay people, that they're immoral because they're gay, and just trying to prevent them from getting married or living their lives or whatever. And if you're not, if you're just straight and want to be married and have kids and a family and all that, that's great too. That's fine too. The traditional lifestyle is fine, uh, and the gay lifestyle is fine. Just let people be. I'm fine with that. Um, what I have a problem with is, when people start demonizing others and using legislation to limit their lifestyles when they're not hurting anybody, you know.
yeah, I think in that sense, I guess we people gave too much power to the government, maybe further too much on controlling things that are very individual choices. And I think I talked a little bit about this talking to Cernovich, and maybe because I have a very more libertarian idea. I don't know. Have you done your political compass? Where do you fall in?
um I'm of course in the lower left side, but not far lower
To the
left.
left. Okay.
I think if I remember correctly, it was like one over to the left and like three down, something
Okay.
like that.
I
Uh,
was there before. I have crossed the line to the right side. But I think it's an interesting concept. I like to do my political compass once in some time. I have gone a little bit around because I
mhm.
was much more authoritarian before. I used to believe in to government really stopping people from doing a no, from like stopping people from doing like abortion, for example, before.
Mhm.
And then later I would think, yeah, the government should actually give abortion to people. Now I think the government shouldn't do nothing to do with abortion more than set some limits and then let people do it privately. So it's
Yeah, I'm very anti-authoritarian, um, but I do. My main issue with the government is that it's wasteful and inefficient, and I think that is very important to correct because I do think um, I am left leaning towards like social policies and stuff, but I'm not quite in favor of raising taxes. So I think that in order to provide for people who need it, what we really need to do is make the government more efficient, less wasteful, less corrupt. And then I think that we already give the government more than enough in order to take care of people. It's just
Mm,
that
totally true.
the money is
Yeah,
abused.
the institution became too big in Brazil, definitely is the problem. They have good intentions, but now it became a closet full of employees that it takes too much money to run itself.
Hmm.
And there is no money left to actually give to people. Or we can actually see a little bit on the results of giving money to actually people have changed also the culture of the demographics in some
Mm.
way not good, I would say culturally. You know people became less responsible, or it's a type of an incentive that in the end is a motivation for people's uh, not care to do better. So it's,
Hmm.
yeah, it incentivizes stagnation.
The main problem is there needs to be accountability, on both ends. Like, um, part of the problem with the with government waste is that there's not much accountability when you're handling other people's money. You're not going to be nearly as careful with it as you are with your own money. So if there was some accountability there and people had to have more of a concern with how they're handling other people's money, I think that would help.
Yeah, it is a long conversation because it's enter economics and this idea of the collective. I don't know. I'm very against the idea of the government really taking care of everything. The things be from the state, because
Hmm.
we experienced this in Brazil and it's a bad experience. I think the private sector has all the incentives and motivation to do much better than any public service. And
What do you think about I what do you think about the idea of like necessities being provided, but luxuries requiring work,
yeah, no,
requiring
that is my
ambition?
that is something that should be reviewed in Brazil, man. When we talk about the public health,
Hmm.
because I believe we give too much. That line on what is the necessity is what
Hmm.
is broken, and that is one of the powers that sometimes I see we experience now with corona. Is like, what is an essential travel? Because now it's just a definition that is completely subjective, I guess, or abstract. And what does the government understand from essential? Like, what is the essential service that the public health should be giving in Brazil? It's always pushing to give more when the system is already not sustainable. But
Mm.
because of, I understand, we want to do better, we want to help people that have needs, but it's not, is it utopic in that way? We It's not even sustainable system. So I have my issues with giving people so much. Or at least one thing that I could see Brazil making better is trying to educate better the population and step back on giving things on education for them to look properly for the services, because we have a lot of waste on the functioning of the system because people will use it in a bad way. They don't have the feeling like we have in Canada. In Canada, what happens is like we have public health, but we have a bill that comes to our house and we pay. So it does, you know that it's not for free. You're paying taxes, you paying that bill, you see coming, you have this idea. In Brazil, we're talking about people that have like no incoming sometimes, or they have, but it's too low, so they don't even pay tax, and they really feel the public system is free. I can use whatever I want, and it's universal, and it's free, and it's open all the time. So they go for whatever reason. They call like an ambulance, an emergency ambulance that costs like every run is 1,000 reais.
Hmm.
They call for like stupid reasons. They misuse the system. It's a lot of waste. And yes, education, yes, take the system out, maybe not, but there's so much to do. I think if I was in the power, I would try to educate people first,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe try to do the look, if you misuse, we're gonna find you somehow. It could be something ridiculous, like just symbolic, but to give them the idea that this system is not for free.
Right.
It's taken from someone's other family, you know?
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, it's it's complicated. Going for the last video I want to talk is just the life of Job, because I love that video, and I think that exemplifies a lot of, I keep talking about how religion don't make people better and don't make men moral, because if you fear hell and is just seeking or doing good just because you seek for heaven, you're not really a good person. You're just like a trained dog or a fearful dog. So
Right.
and I love that your wife's voice was in that show.
And
So
and
you have
and
other
Joe,
actors, or you and your wife? Tell me.
yeah, mostly it's just myself and my wife. And if I need other voices, um, I'll look to other YouTubers that I know, who I think would be interested, and I try to direct people to their channels and shout them out and whatnot.
Whenever you
And
need some voice, please feel free
yeah,
to tell me.
yeah. Anybody, yeah. When I need someone, I'll uh, make sure that they have a good microphone, and if they're willing, and if they agree with the message of the video and stuff like that, then that's what I do. Um, Now you were talking about the Job video, right? Yeah, that was from several years ago. Um, but yes, what you say is right. If you only behave a certain way because you fear punishment, um, then your motivation isn't a moral one. It's a motivation out of fear. The the Your loyalty to that fear will change as soon as a bigger fear comes along. Um, it'll so you'll be very fickle. If you're motivated out of a genuine desire to do good, out of love, then even if you are presented with something scary, something fearful, you're going to remain loyal to your morals, to what's true to you. That's why people would die for their loved ones, because them being hurt or killed is more scary to them than even their own losing their own lives. Um, Someone like that is motivated by love, not by fear. And when you try to motivate people through fear, it's you don't know if they're moral or not. You just know that they're trying to preserve themselves.
Yeah, I think it is a little bit uh, not just the moral, the selfishness, what is bad, but imagine that when you believe in this God, you do good because this God actually tells you to do charity, to be good to other people. But then if you change God, it could be a God that tells you that it's fine to kill your enemies from other churches. So the the arbitrarity and the subjectivity of moral religious and their gods, it's what is worse in my opinion. And I think the idea of like, no, we all can be good and we don't need to have any superior imaginary beings over our heads to be good, it would be much better. Like I mentioned, we don't need church to segregate, to put walls in between people and believe that they have a better God than the other guy from the other
Mhm.
church. We could all love each other just for being humans. Same thing with all the walls that have been built mythical in our heads as race, religion, politics, all those things that are actually segregating us as humans, that when we should be just talking about, we all want the best for everybody. The left and the right wants the best for everybody. We just need to be able to disagree and find a common ground to be able to find solutions for everybody that are actually better for everybody. So I just want to brush in the end your Twitch. Tell people, go check. God is playing to God is playing on Twitch, and
Yeah.
tell us just a little bit how was that possible? God speaking and playing and your games.
A good buddy of mine, all the way back from high school. This was back in the early '90s. That we've known each other since. He became a computer programmer. He makes games and he knows how to write code and everything like that. And he took my God character. I provided him all the drawings, the cartoon of God and all that stuff. And he made a program like that kind of makes them into a puppet that responds to my voice. So when I talk, God's lips move and all that stuff, and he automated the eyes to just look around automatically and blink automatically, all that stuff. But I can also control it manually with just a
That's
regular.
pretty cool. So
Yeah,
you
I
can
can.
give it some different things into
Yeah,
God's.
yeah.
Cool.
If I could stand here and not do anything and still have God be animated just automatically, but if I wanted to do specific things with him, I could take over and use the controller and do
That's
that.
awesome. Do you use those commands? What is the extra stuff that God can do? You do that often?
Um,
Throw
yeah,
things in the
yeah.
screen? Is that more
Oh,
what you
sure,
do?
sure. I don't know
Because
if you
I've
can see
seen you
this.
making the jokes when you.
Can you see these?
Oh yeah.
These are different
Oh,
animations that are
oh,
programs.
I cannot see the animations here, but yeah. So there are
Mm.
different. Oh, okay. Wait a minute. Your camera is
There you
speaking,
go. There
speaking.
we go.
Oh, there you go. I see. So God drinking. Oh, that's cool.
I just press a
So
button and then
those are
he'll
the
do that.
gifts, like
Yeah,
gifts.
yeah.
Cool.
Press a button, press one of those buttons
What
and he'll
I've
do it.
seen you doing, one of the first times I jumped on your Twitch and I was like, you're like, you Dr. Owlet, I have a picture. You sent me this terrible picture. And then you make jokes and putting pictures, like funny
Right,
pictures of people saying that we send those. Was
right,
pretty cool.
right.
So yeah, it's really nice that you can interact with people. Twitch, it's a fun platform, and I was actually gonna tell you that you should share yourself doing the illustrations, the realistic drawings. I love those. It's very
Right.
sad that you only have very few. Uh, and old. They're old videos, huh? Those
Oh
with
yeah.
Lawrence Cross, drawing Lawrence Cross, and well, what's that?
The most recent one I did was called uh, is God the villain or something like that, or is um I think that's what it was called. I've done so many videos, sometimes it's hard to remember the titles of all of them.
Yeah, the illustrations are really pretty. It's really pretty that Muhammad cutting off Jesus' head. It's really
Right.
pretty. And
Yeah.
I love Twitch. I follow a lot of artists, so I like watching people making drawings. I like to draw myself. But I can't do realistic pictures like those, so I was really impressed. You're a really talented artist.
Oh,
Uh,
thank you.
and I love that the one that is Meridian Frost contest entry, one that the guy is playing guitar and you draw him, and in the
Yeah.
end he comes out of the drawing. I just love that video. I've
Thank
watched
you.
it several times.
Yeah, that's an old friend of mine. So that's the only significance really there. And he's an old atheist YouTuber too, but he doesn't do any videos anymore. But um, the most recent drawings I did were from Is God Actually the Villain? That was from 1 year ago. So um, that's my most recent work.
I'm gonna be linking, putting cards all over the video, and also there's an end screen and descriptions with all the links so people can follow and find you. Uh, how people can support you? Please let them know now before we finish.
Oh, okay. Sure. Well, I mean, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel first and foremost if you're interested, and I have a Patreon. You know, that's a good way to support me ever since YouTube started doing a lot of demonetization and it became less viable as an income source. But um, and then of course the other way is through Twitch, in which I do live shows every week. I've been doing about 3 shows a week on Twitch, so if you want to check that out, it's all Dark Matter 2525. YouTube / Dark Matter 2525, Patreon
Are you
slash
playing 3 times a week on Twitch?
I have
How
been.
is how is that? Oh, just one more thing. Do those games you play by yourself, or you just play because of requests, or is is
Oh, I
playing
just
games is a common like your normal routine?
um a little of both. Most of them I just decide on my own, but sometimes people suggest something and I have done a few suggestions too. I'm always up for suggestions.
Oh, that's really nice. Yeah. So yeah. So Patreon. Do you have PayPal too?
Yeah. Um it's
I'll,
it's
I'll,
it's linked
I'll be
on there.
linking everything in the description. So anybody that please consider subscribing, supporting, sharing, liking, and Patreon, everything. Thank you very much for coming, John. It was a big pleasure. I'm a big fan. And guys, go check. The videos are amazing. Thank you very
Oh,
much.
thank you. I appreciate it.